Amidst all the progressive mindset changes in American society, President Roosevelt in the early 1900s believed in the big stick ideology. And to preface that, Theodore Roosevelt believed in various different civilizations. He believed that civilized nations were largely white, largely Western European of influence, or somewhere else of the sort, and these had developing economies based upon various different principles that were quote unquote civilized. Um, the uncivilized nations were those that were undeveloped, largely in Latin America, Eastern Europe, or even Asia. Your third world, basically. So the idea was the United States could influence many of the uncivilized nations, oftentimes that would have raw materials or they would have other things that could make them a civilized society. And the United States had the wherewithal and right to influence and intervene in affairs of the stability of many of these nations. And he believed in the speak softly and carry a big stick mentality. So basically, hey, we're going to be intelligent and diplomatic. But in the event that you get out of line, we've got this powerful weapon, our military, our big stick, to keep you in line. And even though we really don't want to use it, we've got it. And we're going to let you know we've got it. But just by the fact that we've got it, hopefully that's going to be enough of a deterrent so as to keep things diplomatic. That was the idea. But otherwise, because the United States had a really strong developing naval power and the United States wielded strong economic growth, it was believed that a civilized society, such as the United States, could intervene on behalf of these uncivilized societies. That was our duty. And we would do so by speaking softly and carrying that big stick that we talked about. Okay? And part of that ideology stemmed into the Russo-Japanese War that took place largely in mainland China. See, Japan and Russia had been seeking territory in modern day Manchuria, which is mainland China. And they were both in territorial dispute. They both wanted to colonize it for various different reasons and exploit it. And they went to armed conflict against one another. Things weren't going so well for the Russians against the Japanese. Theodore Roosevelt, with America's newfound diplomatic and economic strength, tried to broker some sort of a peace settlement between the two. And he did. He got the Russians he got the Russians to understand, okay, you're losing this war, so why don't you go ahead and agree to Japanese terms for their territorial claims? Okay, you're going to lose. Let's just stop the bleeding now. And Japan, for that matter, decided it would stop trying to intervene any further and try and stop. It would stop growing territorially, if that matters. In addition, he also negotiated with Japan that the United States could trade freely in that region. And because of it, Teddy Roosevelt won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906 for brokering the peace between the Japanese and the Russians. And that was protecting the United States' open door. You see, the United States saw Asia as a viable trade destination. And to wield our economic influence, we needed stability in that region. Okay? This Japanese-Russian war is not a good thing for American economic interests in Asia. We've got to promote stability. So, we want to keep the door open to Asia, and in do so, we've got to keep the Japanese and Russians from fighting against each other. Okay? So, we're going to, again, be diplomatic and wield that big stick so as to wield a little bit of influence to promote stability in the region. The United States Navy, when Japan decided that they were somewhat threatened by the power of the economy of the United States, they tried to close off some of those trading ports that they promised to keep open as a part of the peace agreement with the Russians. So, Theodore Roosevelt sends 16 naval ships, all painted in white at that time, to go ahead and protect some of those ports, as agreed with the Treaty of Portsmouth. So, that became known as the Great White Fleet. Okay? Now, modern naval ships are not white, and soon afterwards they'd be painted and promoted in a gray steel type color. To this day, they are that same color. Okay, but otherwise they were white for that particular time. The United States also developed the idea that not only are we going to speak softly and carry a big stick and we're going to wield influence in Asia, but hearkening back on the Monroe Doctrine, which gave the United States the right to intervene in affairs to keep Latin American countries from being re-exploited by European colonizers, he added the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. And within that, it gave the United States not only the right to oppose any sort of European intervention in South America, but it gave them the right to intervene in their domestic affairs so as to maintain sovereignty and order within these countries. Part of that stemmed from Venezuela, for example. They owed several different European nations some money, and when they defaulted on some of that debt, these Europeans came calling, i.e. Germany. And they said, hey, Venezuela, unless you pay us, we're going to send out ships and we're going to block your seaports and block your trade. The United States, with this Roosevelt Corollary, saw that and basically said, look, Germany, stand down. Let them be. Do not intervene in their affairs. You come to us first. We will help. We can intervene in their domestic affairs because they are American countries. These are South American, Latin American countries. They're to be influenced by us in the Western Hemisphere, not by Europe. So, stand down, Germany. And basically that was another way for Theodore Roosevelt to really wield that speak softly, carry a big stick mantra. In this case, with a corollary to the old Monroe Doctrine. Okay? Europeans will not intervene in Latin American affairs, and in this case, the Roosevelt Corollary gives the United States the right to intervene in Latin American domestic affairs and otherwise.